Hello, everyone, and welcome to another video here on the Sports Daily Media Network YouTube channel. I'm your host, Sean Vowles. I've got Mike Kumar with me, and today we've got some breaking news that came a couple days ago, Mike. Former Alabama player Charles Bediako was granted a TRO in an attempt to return for Alabama basketball. He played for the Crimson Tide from 2021 to 2023. He's been on various G League teams since then. Um, Mike, when you saw this, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I still need to process of how this is allowed to happen. But this is just another example of the NCAA is just losing everything in court, to include losing a temporary restraining order here against a guy that played in the G League for years. He went through the draft process, hired an agent, was undrafted, played I think 2.5 seasons at this point in the G League, and then all of a sudden he's going back to college. Like, how do we allow this to happen?
And
Um,
and he has been given 10 days until the it goes to trial. Um, Obviously, Alabama looks like they're going to play him now. Nate Oates did say he got a little bit hurt in practice today, but at the very minimum, Mike, he's going to be able to play 2 games here. I think he can if he's healthy. He can play, but obviously the longer ranging impacts are, who else can do this now because he's been out of the league for a couple of years. But
I mean,
obviously
are
the
we gonna have
NCAA,
guys that have played in the G League for 10 years come back and play college basketball? Like
I
when does this end?
the
How does
one
this end?
the one thing going for him, Bediako, is that he is still on his eligibility clock. It would be year 5 for him,
Yeah.
so that's the only thing that he is going for him. I mean, he found a judge down there in Alabama who's a big time Crimson Tide donor, and he gave him the TRO. Um, but obviously, the NCAA can take this to trial, Mike, but they can't keep him off the court for 10 days. So, how do you think that they should approach this? Do you think? I think they should give it everything that they've got to stop it.
This really is a last ditch effort for the NCAA to see if they have any power actually left in the organization, right? It's clearly this is like the most probably dysfunctional non-governmental organization in the United States. And part of it is just because they're not only are they spineless, but part of that is they're losing everything in court. At one point, is federal legislation going to have to come into play in order to save college basketball?
Yeah,
Because it seems like that's probably what's going to have to happen.
the government might be in a better spot than the NCAA at this point, and
Probably.
yeah, but so when it
That's
comes
crazy.
to the first game again is against Tennessee this Saturday, Mike. At first, I was thinking that Tennessee should like really put their foot down and forfeit and refuse to take the floor. But on the other hand, the NCAA could say that all games where ineligible players played will be disregarded. Like the way that they have set up the NCAA tournament is they could
Yeah.
disregard the games with Bediako. Now, if you're Tennessee, you probably want him to play, so there's a chance that you can find your way into the W column here. But Alabama's certainly playing with fire here. And then when it comes to how the NCAA say the TRO's up, they lose in court because if you can't win this case, there might not be a case that you can win. Um, but let's say he plays these 2 games. What do you think the NCAA needs to make these games that he plays in null and void?
I think at the end of the day, though, that's going to go back to court, and the NCAA is probably going to lose in court. I think even the NCAA, we've seen a quote here, and I'll do it. And it says these attempts to sidestep NCAA rules and recruit individuals who have finished their time in college or signed NBA contracts are taking away opportunities from high school students. A judge ordered the NCAA let a former NBA player take the court Saturday against actual college student athletes. And this is exactly why Congress must step in and empower college sports to enforce our eligibility rules. So, I mean, essentially, the NCAA is saying, look, like, hands are tied. There's nothing we can do about this. and we need federal legislation in order to get this done. I don't think federal legislation is going to happen anytime soon. We've got a government shutdown coming in potentially 10 days, but hopefully at some point our politicians in Washington can come together and make something happen here for the betterment of college athletics to actually give the NCAA some sort of um, legislation to stand on.
It seems like if you were to get, 2 to 3 coaches from each major college sport, they could probably come up with a plan in like a day,
Yeah.
and you just hand that to Congress. They don't even have to come up with it. They just need to put it into law. Um, but you see, you have Coach Calipari. Every time that he's on the podium, he's making a stand for his 5 year. You have 5 years to play, 4 years, and you can transfer once for free. And your second transfer, you'd have to wait a year unless your coach is fired or um, that. So it seems like everybody has a plan or an idea of what should happen. A lot of different ideas, but they're all a lot different than the current landscape that we're in. Um, but this was obviously something that obviously it happened with your team first, Mike. James Nanji, obviously a little bit of a different scenario, never played in the G League, came from a foreign country, which, we've had players, foreign pros, come to college for a while now. Um, this one is the bigger step. And if he wins this, Mike, there are a lot of players that have a better case than he does.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And to make the differential between Najee and this, right, for a lot of people who are saying, look, this guy down at
Because
Baylor, he did the same thing.
Nanji is
Um,
up here on the ESPN article that the viewers are seeing. But
Of
yeah,
course, yeah, and to that point, look, Najee was drafted, unlike Bediako. However, Najee never played a single second in an NBA affiliated league. He went back overseas, which the NCAA has been okay with, right? There was no lawsuit. There was no judge that granted him permission to play. He was granted permission to play by the NCAA rules and regulations, right? So at the end of the day, Scott Drew didn't have to pull any strings, didn't have to call a local judge. It's a circuit court somewhere in Central Texas. Like it happened based off of the rules and clear guidance. There was, maybe you can call it a loophole, but it was legal and there was no legal fight there. This is different because this is yet another case where the NCAA is losing. But I think there's some great coaches that you could have come in. You could even do a conglomerate of coaches from different sports. Nick Saban would be a great one to have with Tom Izzo. You floated the idea of Calipari.
Gino
There's so many.
Auriemma, you can get some women's
Yeah,
coaches in there. Yeah,
sure, absolutely. I mean, you could have
I think
an
if you give
elite.
them a weekend, I think they'll come up with a pretty good plan.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, I don't really like the guy, but you can throw Coach K in there. I don't care. Like Bill Self, I think is another great one. Um, put these guys, lock them in a room, and because of their passion for college athletics, they're going to come up with a solution way faster than all of us. But I think, Sean, they're all going to say the same things that we're saying, and that we have to have a clear standard here. Whether that's you get 5 years, 4 years with a red shirt, whatever it is, it needs to have actual binding, legal binding that is signed into law. Because also state governments don't want to touch this.
And they
If
can't
if a
really,
state,
but yeah.
yeah, if the state government can make something binding in, the state of Texas or the state of Alabama or the state of Florida, but they don't want to hinder their own athletics programs when everybody else is playing like it's the wild, wild west. So yeah, it has to come from the federal government and it has to come with insight from people that have been dedicated their life to this sport, not a career politician.
And the I've sort of been scrolling through the article here, Mike, as you were talking, and all the people with various quotes in here. Like there's UConn athletic director David Benedict, who is telling Charlie Baker, the chairman of the NCAA, to take you know put your foot in the ground and to make a stand. And there's some quotes out there like if we can't control this, then we can't control anything. Um, but at the end of the day, Mike, there is no cut and dry way to make these games count.
Yeah.
Like, even if Alabama gets, they're going to make the tournament, even if these 2 games are forfeited at the end of the year. if you get to Selection Sunday, they're going to know that these games happened and you can keep them out. And it's sort of like if you sue for not getting into college, right? How can Alabama prove that they were dinged for these two games if it comes to it? Like if they're a six seed
Comes to
instead
it,
of a
yeah.
four seed, how can they prove that those two games mattered? So I think the NCAA actually has a few levers to pull here in fighting back, even if they do win in trial, which I think they will. But if they win here, I do think we'll see it snuffed out, and there might be a few G League ish players from different countries that might try and get in. Like Louisville has a player who played in the G League, but he's injured, and I don't know if he's going to play this year. London Johnson, but it seems like the NCAA is ready to put up a fight here, and we are going to find out at the end of the month whether they win or not. Um, you know, at the end of the day, Mike, like he's got to go back to class legally, right? He's got to have a full schedule of classes to be on the team. This the semester is either just started or has started last week at Alabama, so an incredibly messy situation here. I think these 2 weeks will be the most messy because we're not going to know whether Bediako is here until March Madness or this is going to be one of the weirdest college sports reference pages we're going to see in 10 years where a guy's played for 2 years and then he plays again 3 years
He's
later.
Bediako.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't think I have anything else. I think we'll wrap it up unless you got something.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, with classes, we already know the answer that Alabama's
Yeah,
going to do.
shapes
We
and
we saw an example
colors,
with Carson Beck, right? Carson Beck got asked during the presser for the CFP championship game if he was going to class, and he said, "I graduated 2 years ago. I haven't been
and
going to
the
class."
that that situation was a little bit overblown.
It
He
was.
You don't have to enroll in spring classes to be eligible for college football. And because of the postseason being pushed so far, like it's the spring semester now, and Beck is going to the NFL draft, so he is not in class in
No, no, no,
January.
no. But
But he
but
did
the
have a
the, the point
full he
being
did have a full
that
schedule in the fall.
he probably got a gen ed masters,
Yeah.
he probably took like 3 or 4 classes. One of them may have been like coloring in between the lines.
Yep.
And that's what's going to happen with Bediako. Like,
Yep.
yeah, he's not going to get real classes.
No.
But at the end of the day, this brings an important point. And I don't want to get too principled on here, but what's the point of college athletics? You know, is the school serving college athletics, or are college athletics serving the school? And at a certain point, you have to realize and figure out what the importance is. I think the importance of college athletics should be to graduate students, to prepare them for the real world, because most of these guys, even the ones, some of them making millions of dollars, they're not going to make it playing big time college basketball. And so they're just this is just another example of we kind of just need to nuke it and start from scratch. But it's going to take an effort like Teddy Roosevelt saving football in the early 1900s for this to be fixed. It's going to take a lot of work.
Yep. And we're gonna find out here over the next couple weeks whether this is just a story that we'll remember or whether he'll be playing and a part of our analysis for Alabama the rest of the year. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.